Are you familiar with the red flags of caregiving? Well, I'm going to talk about that on this next episode of Chattin' It Up with CJ. Hey, I'm going to talk to you about the red flags of caregiving. Yeah, there's plenty of red flags. There's flares that go up. The question is, are you going to pay attention to them when you see them? Are you going to recognize them? I didn't. That's why I'm able to talk to you about it, because I'm going to share all my mishaps, what I did wrong, what I noticed, and I had no clue how to do it. And I'm hoping that these videos that I put out help you have a little bit more insight so that when you are faced with something similar, you'll know exactly what to do, or you'll have a hint as to what direction you should go. You know, I was taking care of my mom. She had mild cognitive impairment. I call it MCI, because she was never formally diagnosed with a type of dementia. With that being said, I knew that my mom had a companion that she used to hang out with. No big deal, because I was busy taking care of my dad at the same time. So it was kind of like a welcome type of companionship, if you will. And they enjoyed each other's company. But the problem with that is that her companion, her friend, was more of an enabler. No fault at him, but my mom has a type of strong personality. He didn't want to make waves, and I don't blame him. I just walked away because I just didn't want to tolerate her. But he did everything that she wanted and then some. But it became a detriment. And the reason that I say it was a detriment, when I started to pay attention to what was happening in her world, I was like, oh, this is not good. And it's hard to undo something when you are ignorant to what is happening. And it's easy to do that. No fault, no shame. I'm giving myself grace because I was learning along the way. And you should give yourself grace as well. But these were some of the things that I noticed that were happening, but I didn't want to notice them. I thought to myself, I'm already bogged down with my dad's caregiving. Now I'm going to have to pay attention to you. And not only that, what is happening? And the more I asked what is happening, the more it was like, God, I don't want to go deep. But I had to go deep. You see, the longer something that is wrong continues to persist, the worse the outcome is. Kind of like a slow drip in plumbing. It starts out really small, but you give it enough time and it'll become a flood. And that's what you do not want. Oh, but caregiving isn't much different. You have to pay attention to what's happening. You have to kind of train yourself of what to look for. I always mention in my past videos, you almost have to be a detective. Part of that is with my grandmother. She has been long gone for quite some time, but I remember when she was independent and fiercely independent in her little apartment. She would be cooking, no big deal. She'd be self-sufficient. But the problem is she put the pot holder a little too close to the gas flame. And we all know what happens when a gas flame hits a pot holder. Well, you can start little fires. And even though it was snuffed out, no harm done, the point is it got to that point. And when we would show up at her place, we're like noticing, why does the pot holder have burn marks on it? Why is this like that? Little clues that there's things that are not cool, things that are needing attention. I had to start doing that with my mom because I started to notice that there were things happening that were needing attention. They were my quote unquote red flags. And it was my cue to step in. Now, that's the other part. When you have a fiercely independent loved one, they don't want you to step in because you're now impeding on their independence. And you're going to get a lot of pushback if they are not so passive. You know, you get into a passive aggressive motion and whoa, you're stepping into territory that they don't want you to be in. And you're stepping into a territory you're not permitted. They don't even want you there. So, I was thinking about the time that I showed up at my mom's house and saw stacks of mail. My mom was independent, and I would like look at things and go, "Why is there a stack of mail, Mom?" And then when I really paid close attention to the mail, I'd see a lot of postcards from the bank. And these postcards on the bank were not saying, "Hey, Rita, how you doing? We're thinking about you." No, they were more or less saying, "We're thinking about you as we go ahead and pay the check that you wrote, even though your bank balance is in the rears. But here's a postcard to say that we've charged you $35, $40 for an NSF fee. We honored your check, but you need to bring your account up to date." And I freaked out. Why? Because there was at least 6 or 7 of those postcards. And I was like, "Oh, heck no." And when I asked my mom about it, she was clueless. So, what was my red flag? Well, that was a big old flare saying, "You better check her finances because she's obviously writing checks." And that's the thing. She would hire people to do work and she would write these checks. They would be honored by the bank. Sometimes they were so large that they would not honor it because she wasn't making her bank account current. So I had to think, all right, we need to take the checkbook away. And I need to find out what her financial situation is because obviously she's not depositing enough into her account. Then she's writing the checks. My mom was reliant on Social Security. She wasn't making much. And she got a very small pension from the Netherlands. Yeah, my mom was an immigrant. And she was a legal immigrant of the United States for over 65 years. And, she relied on that, but she didn't do the math. And my mom was a stickler for writing everything down in a check register. But that was another clue. She was no longer writing anything in her check register. Let me tell you, it's hard to watch that happen when you know the characteristics of your loved one and you're realizing something's not right. And you're seeing something that they loved fall apart. She loved to be organized and she loved to be responsible. She took pride in that. She took pride in her garden and her flowers, but they were all dying or dead. And I started to look around and realize, man, this place has been shooting up some flares for a long time, and I haven't been paying attention. I was distracted with my dad, reasonably so, but they only had me. And I needed to step in and do something. And I needed to do something quick because I didn't know how bad it was until I really started digging. And when I started digging, I discovered she was in arrears with her property taxes and everything. And I had to turn around and figure out how to make it right. Not only that, at the time that I was innocently ignorant, I went grocery shopping for my mom and I would drop off groceries for her, not realizing that she was a diagnosed dementia patient. I would drop off a week's worth of food and I would do that every week. I would buy like 12 cups of yogurt, a flat of yogurt and things that she could easily, prepare for herself, things that you could put into a microwave. Think about that. That's just a fancy oven. Imagine what that microwave looked like when I started to clue in. Not only that, I would make sure that we have like ready-made salads so that she didn't have to do much, but that she wouldn't be starving. And I would show up and drop off the groceries, and then I would come back the next day to check up on her, and all the yogurts were gone. And she would say, "You'd be proud of me, Carolyn. I'm eating a yogurt once a day." I'm like, "I was just here yesterday and I just dropped him off." Another red flare, another red flag. I was like, whoa, what is happening? You'll hear cases of people that are dealing with dementia patients that literally forget how to eat, or they don't feel like eating because their senses are compromised. My mom's senses for food were not gone, obviously, but she had no sense of time. She had no way of understanding that. And her companion, he wasn't around all that much because he was older and he was having his own battles. God bless him for driving all the way to see my mom and spend the weekends with them. Sometimes my mom's personality was so strong, and I don't know if it was the disease or her or what, but they'd have their tiffs, and he would just say, "I don't need to take this," and he would leave. And I would find situations because my mom was also a diabetic and a kidney patient, stage 3 renal failure. And I'd see her on the couch, and I can laugh about it now, but literally there was a bottle of Bailey's and cream with a straw hanging out of it. And I'm like, what the heck is going on? I go, "You can't do this. Number one, there's a ton of sugar. You're a diabetic patient. And really? A straw?" Again, my elevator wasn't going to the top. My elevator was saying something's not right, but it didn't quite hit that she needed more attention. She was not able to take care of herself. And that's just the general things that I'm thinking of. Because when we're talking incontinence, good golly, Miss Molly, the things that I've seen, nobody should see. But I'll tell you right now that most of the caregivers that deal with this know what I'm talking about. And most of the caregivers that I'm referring to don't want to talk about it. It's embarrassing. It's stressful. It's something that nobody wants to admit, but it's the number one issue that most caregivers deal with is bathroom antics, lack thereof, or I don't even want to describe it. Use your imagination. Usually the worst is what it is. That, in addition to everything else, somebody needed to step in. And I realized that my mom needed more attention than I wanted to give her. My dad was dying, and I gave him precedence because I kind of took it for granted that she had a companion that wanted to be with her and that he didn't mind. And I thought, if anything bad was going to happen, they're going to let me know. But 2 months after my dad passed, my mom had head trauma, and that's why I ended up going to her place. Because the ER doctor said, "Who's staying with her?" Well, it would have been me. 2 months after my dad had passed, I thought, oh my gosh, we're going through this again. All these things that I'm describing to you, they all happened prior to me living at my mom's under a 24/7 caregiving stint. All these red flares, all these flags, all these signs and clues. I knew it was getting worse. I just could not, in my mind, think, how can I be in two places at one time? You can't. How can I do this? And that's the part where you start to go, I should have stepped in earlier. Now you need to stop and think about what you're dealing with, because every case is different. Every case is not so severe, and every case is even more severe than we can imagine. Only you know, as a caregiver, what attention needs to be had. And there's no shame in realizing that you cannot be there the way you want to be. Sometimes you do have to go for the alternate of maybe a group home, assisted living, memory care, a facility. We make promises to our loved ones, just like I did to my mom. My mom kept saying and begging me, please don't put me in a home. Please, I want to stay home. And it's pathetic when you think about it, because they really are begging, don't make me go there. And what does it do for you as a family caregiver? You feel this immense weight of stress. You have to make a choice. It's okay if you can't step up the way they're asking. You have to do what makes it right for you, because the end result is, how can you help? And what's the best remedy for this situation? Nobody has the right answer, but you have to find an answer that's beneficial for them and for you. Because if you're going to exhaust yourself in trying to keep a promise that you know is just not able to be manifested without sacrificing your sanity, your health, your relationships outside of this, your marriage, all these things are in the balance based on the decision that you make. Don't put the guilt and the shame on you. And it's a hard decision. Nobody can tell you what to do. Only you know. That's my point. Recognize the flags, recognize the warnings, and then assess where you're at. And think about what the consequences are of that choice. There is collateral damage that can occur. But you need to figure out what you can afford as collateral damage. Myself, I weighed out the cost of honoring my mom. I never thought about the collateral damage. And there was a heavy, heavy price that I paid that I won't get into. But I will tell you, my life is no longer the same. I walked out of a life 2 months after my dad passed, and I walked into a completely different world of caregiving. And when I came back home, it was not recognizable. I say that with the utmost sincerity and honesty. There's no shame. And I don't regret what I've done, because I honored my mom and dad. My mom ended up passing away in her home. I kept that promise. That was my choice. But I'll be honest, I never considered the collateral damage that may happen. I want you to weigh out the pros and cons of everything that you decide to do. No shame, no guilt on you. Just weigh them all out. I believe in what you're doing. I believe in what's ahead of you. And I believe, by the grace of God, you will get through this. Hey, like, share, and subscribe. Push that little bell and push that little thumbs up. In the meantime, remember, stay blessed. Take good care of yourself. And I will see you at the next video. Hey, thanks for watching. And please remember to hit the subscribe button. We are trying to grow our channel and reach 1,000 subscribers. Now, for every new subscriber, these two nutheads right here, they're going to get a treat, so we will all be happy. Thanks for watching.